We've all grown up loving magic and illusions. And some of the greatest magic tricks are the ones that are the toughest to figure out. But trying to work things out is what makes the magic even more appreciable and only increases the sense of amazement. So, be it Andrew Lee's amazing knife-throwing trick or Mat Franco's famous phone trick. Hello and welcome back, and today we're gonna unlock the secrets behind the most amazing magic tricks of all time. So, let's get started. At number 7, the teleporting trick. Hart, the talented magician, performed a trick on Britain's Got Talent where he teleported a woman from one stage to another. Here's what happened. Ben took out a paper airplane from his pocket and threw it at the audience members. The paper airplane went flying to an old woman sitting amongst the audience. He then went to that woman, took out a pen, and asked her to secretly mark a dot on that paper. The dot she marked turned out to be seat number L34.
Number is L34.
And a woman named Annika was the one sitting on that seat. Ben then tells the audience member Annika to come up on stage as a volunteer for the trick. He tells her to go inside an auto-conductive cage set up on stage, and the two cages are connected in a circuit to a Tesla coil. Once she goes inside the cage, Ben completes the circuit and magic happens. When he reveals the curtains a few seconds later, the woman is transported from the cage you see on the left side to the one present on the right side. This created a scene which shocked the huge audience. So, how is this teleportation possible? Well, here's the secret. The paper airplane had a map of the theater with the seat number that he wanted already marked before the trick started. Also, before handing over the paper to that woman, he hid that mark from the woman and told her to make a mark secretly. Thereafter, all Ben did was to just give that woman a dry marker with no ink present inside to reveal the seat number that he wants. So now you must have guessed it. The woman sitting in that seat is also in on this trick. But how did she disappear from that cage? Well, the woman after the teleportation happened is her twin sister who was already inside that right side cage. Also, there's a secret compartment beneath the cage where she was hidden all this while, and only came out at the end to finish the act perfectly. To validate the same, if you observe both the women carefully, you can see that the first woman's hair is different from her twin. The hairs of the first girl are curly, while her twin sister has straight hair. Also, if you observe their printed shirts, the leopard patterns on each of the shirts don't seem to match perfectly and vary to a certain extent, which is quite noticeable. This confirms that there were twins involved in the trick. But all credit goes to Ben, who made this act look quite amazing. At number 6, the blindfolded knife and card trick. Andrew Lee, the magician from Malaysia, performed a trick on Britain's Got Talent where he left the audience and judges thrilled and shocked with his amazing knife-throwing card trick. Here's what he did. Andrew first calls upon the presenter duo Ant and Dec onto the stage, where he asks Dec, one of the co-hosts, to pick a random card from the deck. He tears the corner part of the selected card, keeps the torn card back into the deck, and hands over that deck to Ant, and tells him to throw all the cards in the air on his signal. He then puts a black board around Dec's neck, and tells everyone that he plans to get Dec's random card by throwing a knife through it, blindfolded with the blade heading straight towards Dec. On doing so, this death-defying act left both the judges and audience terrified with this seemingly impossible trick. So, how did he do it? Well, here's the secret. First of all, you should never try such things at home or anywhere else. Now, coming to the secret, the card that Dec chose was forced onto him. Also, Andrew never threw the knife. The knife you saw at the target was already pre-installed inside that board with an identical Two of Hearts. So, let's first see how the Two of Hearts card was forced. Andrew here used a common technique of forcing a card. After he pulled out the cards from the pack, as you can see here, the bottom card in that deck was the Two of Hearts, and this card was the one he forced onto Dec. So he intentionally positions that card at the bottom of the deck. Now, using the technique, he first cuts the deck, and in doing so, he applies a pinky break between the Two of Hearts and the rest of the deck. For those of you who don't know, a pinky break is a technique used by card magicians to secretly mark a spot in a deck or slightly lift it up. Initially, he drops the cards slowly, but during the moment when deck says stop, he instantly drops all the cards under the break and leaves the force card, that is, the 2 of hearts, onto the lower deck, and this is how he forced the card. Thereafter, Andrew rips off the corner part of that card, places the torn card back into the deck, and hands over the cards to Ant so he can throw it in the air. Now you think, what about that 2 of hearts which appeared at the target, as the torn corner piece matched perfectly with that card? Well, for that part, Andrew uses another 2 of hearts which was pre-installed in the board before the act had started. Also, both the identical cards, the one which he forced and the other card at the target, were pre-sectioned. And this is how he pre-cut the cards. He stacked both the cards together and cut them simultaneously. Now, the card stacked at the top is cut all the way through, and this card is the one he pre-installs it with a knife inside the board. The card at the bottom is only cut halfway, and during the performance, if you observe carefully, when deck says stop, he doesn't show the card from the middle where he cut it. He only shows the card from the base of the deck, which confirms it was a pre-cut card. Even in this frame, you can see that the force card has a crease mark, thus confirming the pre-cut. Now the only thing he needed to do was to follow the cut and tear the corner part on a predefined line, so that the corner piece also fits the 2 of hearts inside the target board. Also, that was the reason why it was Andrew who ripped off the corner and not the host. But still, what about the missing corner of the card thrown in the air? Wouldn't someone notice it when thrown on the floor? Well, the torn card was glued onto the adjacent card below it using a double-sided tape. That's why no one could easily identify it while the cards were thrown into the air. And now, coming to the pre-built mechanism, as you know, the knife was never thrown, and Andrew only pretended to throw a knife. So, where did the knife in his hand disappear? If you see this frame carefully, the knife he's holding up is attached through the little hole in the handle to a thin black elastic cord that runs up his sleeve. When Ant threw the cards in the air, Andrew pretended to throw the knife, but in reality, as his hand snapped forward, he let go of the knife, which was then retracted by the elastic cord back inside his sleeve. But since the hand is always quicker than the eye, you couldn't see the knife. Now, when the knife retracted back into his sleeve, it triggered the remote control signal to a hidden mechanism inside the target board on Deck's chest. So at that moment, as the camera cuts away, the target board popped up a hidden spring mechanism from underneath. This picture shows how the pre-cut card and the knife were placed on a spring-loaded base inside the secret compartment. Now, when Andrew pretends to throw the knife, the base is raised to its vertical position, which creates the illusion of a knife hitting the target. Also, the mechanism was covered under the furry cover arranged in the shape of a door, which made way for the platform to pop up. To confirm the same, if we look at his performance on Asia's Got Talent, on slowing it down, you can see the card along with the knife pops out of the board from the top, with the help of a spring. So, it's quite a complex trick, but all the credit goes to Andrew for such a great presentation. At number 5, Vanishing an iPhone Trick. Known for his mind-blowing magic acts, Mat Franco performed a special iPhone trick on America's Got Talent, which amazed everyone around. Here's what he did. Mat first begins his act by having 3 judges select 3 cards at random. He then hands over the 3 cards numbered 6, 4, and 2 to Mel B, and takes a photo of her holding the cards with her iPhone. He then mistakenly drops the phone into a glass of water. To fix the phone, he puts it inside a cloth and proceeds to dry it with a hairdryer. He then makes the phone to magically disappear, as we see smoke coming out from the cloth. Heidi then calls Mel B's phone, revealing the phone to be ringing in the audience. He then takes Mel B to a seat that seems to be ringing. Mat cuts into a seat cushion labeled 642, thereby revealing Mel's phone ringing in the seat cushion. Finally, he reveals that the phone contains Mel B's picture taken earlier in the performance. So, how did he make Mel B's phone to vanish and appear back inside a seat cushion? Well, Before revealing the secret, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you get instant notifications of our new video uploads. Now, let's quickly get to the secret. Coming to the first part, how did he force the cards onto the judges? He first tells them to pick freely out of a fan of cards. Here, the deck consisted of 3 chunks of the same card. They were all 6s for Howard, 4s for Heidi, and 2s for Howie. Now, what he does here is to simply force the 3 cards that matches with the seat number that is revealed later in the trick. Moving to the next part, Matt borrows Mel B's phone and proceeds to take Mel B's photo holding those 3 cards at 2 different times. So there must be a reason why he takes her photo 2 times. Yes, he has another dummy phone similar to Mel B's phone already concealed in his left-hand sleeve. After he takes the first picture, you can clearly see him straighten his left arm with his fingers closed over. Here, he catches the dummy phone falling out of his sleeve, after which he claims to be taking a second picture. If you notice, for the second picture, his sleeves are up. Can you guess why? Well, he used the second photo chance to turn the volume down and put Mel B's phone on silent mode. Also during this moment, he secretly drops Mel B's phone down his right sleeve and pushes it through the special pocket known as Top It that makes it fall into his right pocket. So now he had a dummy phone with him, which he then drops it into Mel B's glass that is placed near the edge of the table. This was the reason why the glass was intentionally placed near the edge of the table before the act had started. Now he takes out that wet dummy phone from the glass and proceeds to fix it up using a hairdryer. He first places the dummy phone inside a bag. If you notice, the opening of the bag always faces up. The bag also has some dry ice inside it, which creates the smoke effect. Matt then magically makes the phone to vanish. To create this illusion, the bag, which looks like a single piece of cloth, is actually a bag which is folded 2 times, and it was still a bag after it's unfolded. Now the dummy phone is still secured inside that bag, which he then quickly puts inside his left pocket. Heidi then calls on Mel B's phone. Now here, since Matt had put Mel B's phone on silent, Heidi could hear the ring. But what about the ringtone ringing in the audience seat? Well, the seat number 642 is a gimmick created by Mat Franco. Also, the seat had a vibrating device with a remote control speaker which played out the ringtone when Heidi calls on the phone. Also, the cushion contains a slot where he can slip in the phone from under the chair. So, coming to how he got Mel B's phone into the seat, if you notice, he pulls the knife out as they were leaving the stage, while his right side was away from the audience and nobody was looking for any slight. He then cuts open the seat as he slips the phone into the slot on the underside of the chair leading to the cushion. Finally, Mel B takes out her phone and magically reveals the picture holding the cards. At number 4, the Magical Transformation Act. If there's one act that's worthy of a finale, then it's got to be Magician X performing this amazing act on America's Got Talent. Here's what he did. Marc first gets into his X gimmick and shows everyone a board placed on stage which has cards representing various symbols. Hidden on the back of each of the cards are some of the most famous Got Talent performers across the world. He then asks the judges to randomly pick a card. Simon selects yellow, Heidi selects the smiley face, Alicia selects the letter S, and Howie selects the number 13. He then places the chosen cards on the table. On revealing the back of the cards of all the judges, except Howie, the pictures turn out to be the exact 3 judges. However, Howie's picture was instead revealed on the back of the board after the magician turns it around. Howie then names his favorite performer as Shin Lim, whose name wasn't there on that board. Instead, Howie's chosen card then revealed Shin Lim's name. Finally, he also magically turns Howie's photo into Shin Lim's photo, and to end this amazing performance, Magician X reveals himself as the real Shin Lim. So, did Magician X really transform into Shin Lim? Well, here's the secret. The fact that Shin Lim was hidden under the mask as Magician X was quite a surprise. And also, Marc's appearance behind the judges as the actual Magician X certainly added some spice to the act. Now coming to the first part, how each judge's picture was on the back of the chosen cards. The secret lies in that black platform placed on the table. Here, you can see the magician placing the chosen cards onto that black platform. Now, there were already 4 cards placed on that platform, and on their back, 3 of those cards had the judges' pictures, while the 4th card had Shin Lim's name. Also, the front of all the cards was absolute black, and this made the black platform to blend in with those cards. Yes, using the black art principle of magic, the magician created the illusion as if the platform was empty. Now he places the chosen cards one by one onto the platform. Here, the pictures lined up on the desk had a sticky backing that was all black, blending with the material on the table when viewed from the front, so he just lined up whatever cards the judges picked with the photos. The sticky side made the cards to stay together. Here, a thin magnetic strip available in magic shops could also work out in this case, as it sticks onto the chosen card. He now just had to flip over each of the cards to reveal the judge's photo. So it was a free choice, and it didn't matter which cards were picked by the judges, as the photos were already set up. Now, you must have also figured out how Howie's guess of Shin Lim's name appeared on the back of his chosen card. But how did the magician know that Howie would name his favorite performer as Shin Lim, as the whole act revolved around his name? Yes, the key part of the trick was that Howie chose Shin Lim. The switch later on happened because of Howie. If Howie didn't choose Shin Lim, then the act wouldn't work out. Anyways, here's how he forced Howie to name Shin Lim. Since Howie loves Shin Lim and he was the last AGT champion and it's a magic show, so most chances are that he would choose him. Also, if you look carefully, the board had the cards arranged in such a way that some of it resembled the words choose and lim, which also must have forced the selection. If by any chance Howie doesn't pick Shin Lim, the magician would then reveal the card with the correct name on it by magic. And then he would have said something about Shin Lim and finally reveal himself as Shin Lim. Now moving on to the next part, when did he switch himself with Shin Lim? Yes, it was during this moment when he turns around the board to reveal its backside. If you look here, while moving towards the back, Magician X is seen holding the board with his left hand at this position. But moments later, the left hand is seen holding the board at a different position, slightly above the previous place. Yes, the switch happens here, as Shin Lim, who was already behind, takes hold of the board, and Magician X goes towards backstage. You can also easily notice him by his body size. From here on, it was Shin Lim who presented the act. Now the part where he turns Howie's photo into Shin Lim's, here, Howie's photo was already stuck loosely on top of Shin Lim's photo. Now, using a quick sleight of hand, he pulls the photo into his sleeve using a gecko technique. He then walks towards the judges and finally reveals himself to end this amazing transformation act. At number 3, the card in a can trick. Piff the Magic Dragon has got the charisma to bring more to his act than just magic. His performance this time around consisted of calling Heidi on stage, as usual. He then asks her to select any random card from the deck and then sign on it. To add some spice to the act, he even brings his dog, Mr. Piffles, and then gives a full deck of cards with the signed card to his dog inside that box. Piff then grabs one of the cards tossed in the air, but it wasn't the card that Heidi picked. Finally, Heidi's card was then found to be in a can of dog food, which impressed everyone, especially guest judge Neil Patrick Harris, who gave him the golden buzzer. So, how did Piff teleport Heidi's card from that deck into the food can? Well, let's figure out the secret. For this act, Piff actually used 2 basic techniques of magic: the sleight of hand and misdirection. As Piff is known to be a props man, so he used that dog food can as a prop and it was placed inside the box. Also, the can was loosely sealed and the lid could easily be opened and closed again. Another way could be that the lid bottom would not be attached until he puts the card into the can. So here, the can would be bottom up in his box. Then he places the card in, then he gets the lid back on. Now, regarding the card that Heidi picked, it wasn't forced onto her, as the choice of card didn't matter in this trick. But when did he put Heidi's card inside the can? Well, after Heidi signs the card, Piff hands over the deck to Heidi while keeping her signed card hidden up his sleeves. Now he hands over the dog to Heidi, which distracts her for a while, and during this moment, Piff had enough time to hide the signed card inside the food can. Also, the cards jumping out of the box and the way he grabs one of the cards only made the trick look more convincing to the viewers. Finally, he just had to pull Heidi's card out of that can to impress everyone around. At number 2, the appearing beer trick. Australians do love their beer, and Dom Chambers, the Aussie magician, proved to everyone that he had a great beer trick up his sleeve when he amazed everyone on the biggest stage of all, America's Got Talent. Here's what he did. Dom starts his trick by showing everyone that the paper bag is empty. Then he produces a glass of beer from that paper bag. Thereafter, he keeps on producing more glasses of beer, sometimes from the sleeve of his jacket and sometimes from behind the table placed on stage, where he performs quite a few cool tricks. Also, to bring variety to his trick, he even produces a tiny bottle of wine from the bag and magically converts it into a bigger sized bottle. And now comes the most amazing part of the trick. He takes off his right leg shoe and tells everyone that where there's a coaster, there's a beer. So in this act, before producing a beer, he always reveals a coaster. Then he lifts the paper bag to find nothing inside. Then, all of a sudden, he brings out a glass of beer from inside that shoe. Finally, after taking out his jacket and doing a few tricks on that table, he takes out his shoe and then an empty glass out of that paper bag. To end this trick on a high note, he tilts the shoe and what do we see? There's beer flowing out of the shoe, which he pours inside the empty glass and finally drinks the beer to amaze everyone around. So, how did he perform all those tricks? Well, here's the secret. The trick involves the concept of palming, sleight of hand, and a whole lot of misdirection. Also, without that table placed on stage, this trick wouldn't have been possible. So this table also plays a major role in this trick. In his act, Dom produces quite a few glasses of beer. Where do they come from? Yes, there's a hidden shelf behind that table, and a few beer glasses were concealed inside the pocket of his jacket. But still, producing them at the right time involves a lot of skill. And we'll look at each of the reveals one by one. Now, the beer coasters are very easy to reveal as they can be easily concealed inside the paper bags or in his jacket. Let's first look at how he produces a glass of beer from that empty bag. For this part, the paper bag you see has a cut at its other side, which he concealed from the audience. Now, the cut in this bag allows his hand to easily reach near his jacket's pocket and bring out a glass of beer. Here, if you look closely, he's holding that glass of beer, which he finally reveals to the audience. Similarly, for the repeat performance, he places his left hand near the right side of his jacket and pulls out a glass of beer from the pocket and then places it in the paper bag before revealing it to the audience. For the next part of the trick, Dom brings out a tiny bottle of wine from that paper bag and converts it into a bigger one. Here, he didn't bring that tiny bottle from the bag. The tiny bottle was already concealed in his right-hand fist, which he must have pulled out from one of his pockets. That's the reason he takes everyone's attention towards the paper bag. Now, for the transformation, the bigger-sized bottle is inside his left-sided pocket. He pulls everyone's attention towards the bag, and using his left hand pulls that wine bottle from the jacket and holds it behind his hand. Then suddenly, he pulls out that wine bottle to create the illusion of the bottle being transformed. But now you know it. The tiny bottle is still in his right-hand fist, as he enjoys drinking the wine. Now, what about the tricks involving his shoe? Well, after taking out his shoe and revealing the coaster, there's a moment when he gets behind the table. At this moment, he pulls out a glass of beer from the shelf behind that table and puts it inside the shoe. The glass of beer is now concealed inside the shoe, which he finally brings out to amaze everyone around. Thereafter, he produces another glass of beer which was hidden and loosely attached inside the back of his jacket as he pulls it out and reveals it from inside the sleeve while taking out the jacket. Now, the tricks he does behind the table involve sleight of hand, as he pulls out each glass of beer from the table's shelf and then conceals it behind the paper bag and that table before revealing it. Here, he's holding a glass of beer in his left hand behind that bag, and he's also grabbing that bag with his index finger. And this is how he produces the glass of beer. Now coming to the final part, how did the beer come out of his shoe? Well, there was a moment when he was behind that table when he grabs a bag behind that table, inside which there is a shoe and an empty glass. Now, the shoe he grabs is another gimmick shoe which has a compartment built in to hold the beer. Then Dom reveals his shoe and an empty glass from the paper bag and points it towards his feet. But now you know it, the shoe he's holding is not his original shoe, and is the gimmick shoe which he had switched with the original one behind the table. Finally, he pours beer from the shoe into that empty glass and drinks it to end this amazing trick. Now, some of you'd think, how come the beer didn't spill out of his jacket? Well, here, we can only say that Dom had practiced it quite well enough to make the beer in the glass stable inside his jacket. And there's a reason why he was quite firm in his stance, and also grabbed the beer glasses by their top and held it tightly to avoid them spilling out. So finally, the last and a very interesting trick on our list: squeeze box illusion. Now the trick you've all been waiting for. In this trick, David Copperfield performs the squeeze box illusion. First, he goes inside a horizontal box and extends his head out from one end and his feet out of the other. Then he locks himself up in all possible ways. And to shock everyone present there, he starts squeezing both ends of the box toward the middle until his head is right next to his feet. His feet move throughout the trick, and his hands can be shown out from the top of the box. The box is then stretched back out, and he emerges unharmed. So, how did he perform such a great piece of illusion? Well, here's the secret behind it. It's not just Copperfield in this act alone, but supported by one of his assistants for the lower part of his body. All the secret lies in that huge table beneath the box. The actual positioning is done in such a way that together they seem to be just a single person. Also, the box is much deeper and wider than it appears. Here's how Copperfield and his assistant have placed themselves inside the box. Copperfield's body is bent into the table as he hops in and gets into a fetal position, where his assistant also has a bigger, wider box in which he manages to shrink and twist his body. His upper body is hidden in the table below as he plays Copperfield's legs. So it's quite uncomfortable, but the synchronization created makes it a great illusion to watch. So guys, hope you got the secrets behind some of the world's most famous magic tricks. Which trick did you like the most? And name any other magic trick you would like us to reveal. Tell us in the comments below. Do like and share this video with your friends on social media. For more such amazing things, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And finally, thanks for watching.